Let me just say a few words about the sort of bigger picture, because I think it's taken this country probably 2 or 3 decades to recognise that an economy built on retail and banking is maybe not sustainable. It's taken an awful long time to get there, but now I think we recognise that. And just to give evidence to that fact, earlier today over lunch I was in the House of Lords where we had a meeting of the All-Party Committee for Engineering. And what the takeaway from that meeting was, I saw a great number of members of the Commons there from constituencies that I wouldn't normally associate with engineering and manufacturing. So I think the message is getting through that engineering, manufacturing is vital to our economy as we go forward. I'm here to speak as chairman of EPSRC, but I also chair an organisation called Engineering UK, which through Big Bang and Tomorrow's Engineers encourages young people to take an interest and pursue a career in science and engineering. So if you like, I look after the whole supply chain from young people through Big Bang to EPSRC. But one of the reasons I wanted to come this afternoon is I've got a very personal interest in the programme that you're associated with, and I'll come back to that a little later. But what I want to do this afternoon is just to give you a short history about this programme, talk about the broader impact of the programme, and particularly the way it's changing people's thinking about postgraduate training, and also the challenges going forward. Just before I sort of start the journey, maybe some key points about the economy and the context that we're working in. I mean, quite clearly the economy is still struggling. We've still got austerity measures, and for organisations like EPSRC, that does mean we have to make some difficult choices. We have to do more with less, and that's not always easy for the community to accept, but it's the reality of where we are today. I think the second context is that we now have an industrial strategy in this country, which is the first strategy of its type for a long, long period of time. And particularly importantly, when EPSRC looked at that strategy, we saw that about 75% of our investments matched identically to that strategy. So we've got an awful lot right, and we're building on that history. And maybe the third factor is you're all aware of the recent 200 million of HEFCE funding, which if you leverage it up with the industry funding going in is about £1 billion of investment in the sector. Well, all of the successful bids there in some way were associated with EPSRC investment. So quite an important aspect of that. But let's move on to the journey. I'm going to leave James Powell to provide a fuller history, but as you know, this all started with the Parnaby Review in 1990, and then later the Powell Review in 92. 22 engineering dock centres from 1994 going onwards, and then the major rollout out, I guess, in 2009 with 45 centres worth 250 million. And it was at that time that the whole process, the Eng dock, was subsumed into IDT. And importantly, that meant that the whole EPSR portfolio was being organised on a similar basis, not just engineering, but the entire portfolio. And I think the key to the chart we're looking at is that this has been evolution, not revolution. It's been built step by step. And growth has been progressive over this period. But as I said, I'm going to let James take the time to maybe say a little more about this. Right, so EPSRC funds about 29, not about, but actually 29 industrial doctoral training centres for a total spend of about £19 million. 1,400 students, and about 600 companies. That's an enormous number of companies involved in this programme over time. And I think this is one of the most valued advanced postgraduate training initiatives in the world. And our industrial partners really see that. I mean, what could be more telling than that statement from Rolls-Royce, that without the work done by these students, the Trent 900 wouldn't be flying. So, a tremendous accolade to how successful this program is. So, what have we achieved? Well, as I said before, it's not happened overnight. And we review this program periodically, which I think is one of the key strengths. But the 2007 and subsequent review have both picked up similar things. The quality of knowledge exchanged, the student intake and the outputs produced are absolutely critical to this program. Secondly, the practical alignment of research to business needs. I think that is absolutely critical, because if I step back and look at research in the United Kingdom punches way above its weight in terms of research. We're right up there with the United States and other leading countries. And if you measure the impact of that research in terms of the number of citations, if you put that on per pound or per dollar spent, we're way out in front of every other industrial nation. However, when we start moving down the value chain and we measure the outputs in terms of IP, in terms of business startups, we start to fall backwards and are certainly not in the top group of countries. So having research aligned to industrial needs, I think, is absolutely critical as we go forward. And I think it also produces people, because EPSRC is about research, but it's also about people. And this program produces people with the right skills. And what I mean there, that's leadership skills, managerial skills, and also technical skills. So the people we train through this program are really seriously sought after by business. So the people with the right skills needed for business. And I think more recently, just before I come on to Zoe, more recently the work that Tim Wilson did, which was commissioned by BIS to look at this conundrum about universities working with business, he highlighted the EngDoc program and IDCs as a model for enhancing collaborations in this space. So I think this program is a critical component in actually leveraging this research and doing it in a way that produces industrial outputs. I wanted to, in fact, let me go back actually. Let me go back a little to this. We have many advisors and supporters in the community, and many of you are in this room, and I think that's helped us deliver real innovation in postgraduate training, and this program is at the forefront of those developments. And let me just pick out 2 or 3 aspects that I think are really important. I think firstly the cohort effect. That's sort of mutual peer-to-peer support for learning, development, problem solving, network and team working. All of those things are what industry needs. It needs people who can work in teams, who are well connected, can network. And it's providing those skills that take, I think, the EngDoc beyond a traditional PhD who may sit in a laboratory or in his prof's back office and do 3 years of work without real interface with other people. And I think this program and its networking is really, really excellent. The industrial placement. So over 50% of our funded students are working in industry or public service. And 75% of those who do that are in manufacturing business. And I think an industrial placement really benefits all parties: students, business, the supervisor and the university. It makes those critical connections between the 4. I think the taught element is also important here, and that of course was the reason for lengthening the programme to 4 years in the first place. And I think that puts us on a more equal footing with what our international partners do. In my previous job, E.ON was German owned, and they couldn't understand why our PhDs were done in such a short period of time. They really saw the benefit of a longer period of training. And I think the fourth element of the program is putting the student at the centre. It's all about preparing a student for their future careers. And when you think about it, I think the stats say that sort of 1% of PhDs end up as professors. So there's an awful lot of PhDs that need and want to find work elsewhere. And this is really preparing them with those networking skills, those team working skills, mobility, crossing boundaries, international exposure, all of those things which are so critical. So I think that's at the heart of this program. Let me look at three case studies. Firstly, Zoe. I think probably the first point I'll make here is the employability of IDC trained students. Just talking beforehand over tea, I was hearing about the poaching that goes on for students between industrial sponsors. And I think, you know, what we have here, we're training a cohort of extremely experienced and valuable people that industry want. And I was hearing of premiums up to 30% for people coming through this program compared to traditional routes. So I think that really is important. And Zoe, I think, is a great example here. Surrey trained in the mid-90s, brought new ideas into business at the time, and was looking at waste management and resource efficiency, plus the responsible sourcing of goods. And I think now she is responsible for HP's whole environmental activities in Europe. So I think a great example of somebody going in, doing some valuable research and creating a major role for herself as part of that. And in fact, the quote here is a 4-year job interview. Without prompting, probably a dozen people I spoke to before standing up here have said something very similar to me. That this is a great way of getting exposure, and it's a 4-year, two-way interview. That, you know, it's the student selling themselves to business, and it's business selling themselves to the student. So I think Zoe, a great example. Lisa, I think it's another great example of entrepreneurship and the skills developed through this program. She created a spin-out. You know, we need more spin-outs. One of the things we're not all that good at in the UK is spin-out. She created a spin-out which went on to be the largest snowboard company in the UK. Largest company in the UK, and a supplier to other firms. She's now moved on. She's working at Dyson, and you know, it's great to see that she's been able to do that and move into a new area, and has stayed in the UK. And I think that is another aspect of this program, that more people through this program actually continue and develop their careers with UK businesses, and I think that is particularly critical as we're trying to change the economy in this country. And there's a quote from Lisa. Okay, I said earlier on that one of the reasons I wanted to speak today was that I got a sort of a personal aspect to this, and I thought I might use myself as a case study. This was before this program was officially launched, but when I studied for my PhD, I did something that was called an interdisciplinary higher degree at Aston. And at the time, I was looking at failures of crude loading terminals offshore. It was sponsored by industry, so I was working with Shell and Dunlop, and it was multidisciplinary. So it was materials, construction, looking at failure modes as part of that industrial-based research. And I now think this was a great idea, but one of the things that attracted me to taking on this role with Shell and Dunlop, they eulogized about all these fantastic locations around the world that I could go to as part of this research. And they talked about Australia, they talked about North America, they talked about the Far East, and I really got excited. And then came to me and said, "Paul, we've got this fantastic location, Nigeria." Well, it actually was a fantastic location, and I can tell you, you grow up an awful lot when you do that. And if again I can get the IT to work, somebody tell me again how to get this picture to work. Do I just click on it? It's not going to work. Never mind. Let me move on. It just shows a younger version of me with much longer hair. So you're not missing very much by it. So what are the broader impacts? I think the program now has been, it's wide-ranging, it's far-reaching, and it's embedded, I think, in the system. So 4 of our top 10 universities are explicitly looking to embed this program as a norm. We've got another 2 who have taken the best practice from this and are applying it across a broader part of graduate schools in engineering and physical sciences. So they're using it as best practice. I think the international angle is also important. Another UK university has franchised a CDT in China, and it's twinned with one of its own. Other countries are looking at copying this, so Australia, for example, and even NSF in America are looking very, very closely at this type of program, and other research councils are doing likewise. And I think CDTs and IDCs are acting as hubs for further international collaboration with businesses through people. So I think it's having quite a broad and a massive impact. So what are the future challenges? Well, a future challenge for me is that EPSRC are running the next CDT and IDC call in January 2013. There's not enough money, and I'm glad the Minister has come in just a few moments ago. There's not enough money to fund everything. We've already got 600 suggestions, so we're going to have to make some critical and difficult choices through that great number. I think it far exceeded our expectations, and some very, very creative ideas coming forward. So that is really good. But what are the challenges going forward? Well, how do we make these centres more sustainable in the longer term? They can't continue just to depend on EPSR funding. So what can we do to leverage further? What can we do to bring more industrial partners on board? And how much weight do the academic institutions, your universities, place on the success of these programs? And to what extent are you prepared to put your money behind these programs so we can really create a sustainable program going forward, which is part EPSRC, part business, and part university funding? And I think the industry strategy that I mentioned earlier on, how do we demonstrate that we're really tied into that strategy, and we demonstrate the relevance, the impact, and the mapping of what we do across those areas we identified. So let me close on that point. I don't normally try to put words into ministers' mouths, but I think these are words that the minister has quoted or said already, so I don't feel too embarrassed at doing that. So let me thank you for coming along today, particularly thank you for your contribution to this programme, and I look forward to what David has to say now. Thank you.